Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the African American female, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the African American female, Miss LWynn, who is the Assistant Director for State Programs for the Tennessee Historical Commission, as well as an adjunct faculty member at Fisk University. And of course, Ms. Wynn, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. It's good to be here.
And say how delighted we are to have you here with us this morning, Ms. Wynn, to talk about African American females.
Well, that's a very important subject. Generally, when we look at history or African American history, we tend to lump it all together, and we forget to bring out the African American female. And down through the annals of history, she has played a very important role in the saga of the African American story. Very good.
You know, Ms. Wynn, we've had you on a number of occasions, and I think that each time you give us just excellent information. I sort of reflect upon a show that we did quite recently dealing with the celebration of the centennial, I think, for Pearl High School, and such an excellent program you gave us. But there might be some people who didn't have an opportunity to see that show, and they might not know that much about LWynn, about her background and education and some of those things. And so let's start off by having you to talk about not only African American females, but a specific African American female, and that is yourself, and to talk about who you are and some of the things that were involved in eventually leading you to the two positions that you hold with the Historical Commission as well as with Fisk University.
I'll be glad to do that. I'm a native Nashvilleian. I received my secondary education here in the public schools of Nashville, of which I am a graduate of Pearl High School. After leaving Pearl, I went on to Tennessee State University, where I received the BS degree in history. I have an MS degree in history from Tennessee State, as well as a Master's of Public Administration degree from Tennessee State. So I received all of my graduate education and undergraduate education at Tennessee State University. Prior to my going into my position that I have with the Tennessee Historical Commission, I was a social worker with the Metropolitan Health Department, but I found my niche with the Historical Commission, and it was one place where I could put into practice both of my degrees in history and public administration. I am a historian, but I am also an administrator.
Very good. You know, excuse me, Ms. Wynn, you know, one of the things that we often fail to understand is the role that the African American female has played in American history. And let us have you to start off by talking about the African American female as an entity, that is, as herself. Who is she, and exactly what part did she play, and that kind of information?
I think when you look at the African American female, we need to go all the way back to 1619, when the first 20 arrived here in Virginia, Jamestown, Virginia. Usually when we teach that in class, you know, we talk about the first 20. Well, we don't break the first 20 out. Well, among that first 20 were 3 females. That's a little known history fact, and I think it's very important. So you can say that as an entity in what became America, we started out from the beginning with those 20 who came to Jamestown, Virginia. She has played an important role, like I said, down through the annals. If you look at the colonial period, you can talk about women like Phyllis Wheatley, or you could talk about a woman like Jenny Slew or Mum Brent. You know, Phyllis Wheatley, people are probably familiar with, but when you talk about a Jenny Slew, this was a woman who in the 1740s filed suit against the colony of Massachusetts for her freedom. You know, that's another little known history fact. Mum Brent, who I mentioned, is very important in terms of the suit that she filed. I think it was around 1780s or 1760s, because her suit, and Mum Brent was illiterate, but she was very, very smart, and she listened to what the people were saying, and they talked about this freedom, and she desired this freedom not only for herself, but for the other members of her race. So her case is important because, one, it went after not only the petitioner's freedom, but the freedom of all of those, and secondly, because that case used the Constitution of the colony to attack the institution of slavery.
Another little known fact.
Another little known history fact that African American women have played down through the years. Of course, like I said, everyone is familiar with Phyllis Wheatley and her being the first African American woman to publish a book and the second woman in the country to publish a book on poetry. So during the colonial period, you can see that we were very active. You know, black women did not perceive themselves as being passive. They were very active persons. And they looked at things that they could do not only for themselves or for their families, but they also took the community. They had the community in mind. And I think that is exemplified throughout. If you look at the founding of the National Association of Colored Women and their motto, lifting as we climb, that implies that you're looking at more than just self. It was a community-wide type of interest that they had. You know, when you look at the abolitionist movement, African American women were there. Usually when we teach the abolitionist movement, we always mention Frederick Douglass. Well, certainly Sojourner Truth had a part in it. If you want to even call Harriet Tubman an abolitionist, this is a woman who was born into slavery, escaped, saved up enough money, went back into the South, first to bring out her sister and members of her family, but she made approximately anywhere from 13 to 15 trips back into the South and eventually brought out anywhere from 200 to 300 persons. And she was a very stern conductor of the Underground Railroad. She did not allow people to decide that they were going to turn around and go back. She also planned her trips for the weekend. A lot of times students would say, well, why the weekend? Well, she planned them on the weekend because that would give her more time and the potential captors less time to try to catch up with them. So we have been not just active, but I think we have been proactive.
You know, I think that the names that you mentioned are very, very important in the sense that these names really highlight some very, very significant individuals, and certainly we know them as females, but I don't think that we've ever really put them together, and especially when you talk about the coming of the original 20 people to Jamestown. I know personally I've heard that story time and time again, but we never thought in terms of the gender makeup. And I guess had I been queried in reference to that, I would have simply have assumed that they were all men simply because I've never heard anything said in reference to it. And I think that that's essentially what we're trying to
yeah, and you know, I think basically, you know, we know that more males came out of Africa as opposed to females, but there were at least 3, and that again, as I said, is a very little known history fact. So, you know, things like that are the things that I try to bring out. Not only do I teach African American history, but I also teach women's history. So whatever you know I've learned or teach in one, I try to bring it out in just a general survey course.
And of course that gives you an opportunity to not only deal with a specific area dealing with African American history, but it also gives you an opportunity to give additional information about the place of women within African American history from your women's studies
yes.
effort and et cetera. And we can certainly appreciate that. And we have about 20 seconds coming up, Ms. Wynn, before our first commercial break here today, and after which we will come back and we will talk about some other aspects of African American females. But I think essentially this is what we want to achieve, to give our audience some idea of the role of women in African American history and world history, and et cetera. And we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial